Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at SchnellInvestor, and you can also find my blogs on gregschnell.com as well as StockCharts.com. And today I am going to jump into the wild world of marijuana. And that used to be a really popular investment for the last couple of years. And then what happened was all of a sudden it kind of faded out, and there was some big expectations around it getting more attention in the U.S. And then what happened was as it became clearer that it wasn't going to pass federal laws in the U.S., then it was all of a sudden just kind of continued to drift out of favor. Well, now what we see, it appears that the Biden camp has mentioned that they would pass marijuana, take it away from being a criminal element. And that seems to be rejuvenating the sector. And this week it's already started to move a little bit. I've been on it for about 3 or 4 weeks now. But the big thing that last week was a 5% pullback on just one of the ETFs that kind of generalizes in there. So what I thought I'd do is, rather than focus on the individual ETF, is get right into the stock level and talk about a lot of the different ones out there. And hopefully you'll find some interest. One of the things that's nice about this is they move relatively fast, and they're quite uncorrelated to the overall market, so that makes it quite nice. So marijuana names have been basing, and some early leaders are popping up. There's some stocks actually making 52-week highs, so that's kind of awesome. Anyway, so that's always good to know. I just also want to mention that I had held a special for July the 4th, Independence Day, and ran it through July. So this is the last opportunity to get in on it if you want to. This is what is offered by the gregschnell.com website. And if you use this coupon down here, the Daily 5, that's going to help you find about $360 off. So if you're interested at all, just thought I'd mention it. And again, that's going to wrap up right away. So okay, what I've got here is the S&P 500 on a 60-minute chart. And the point I want to make is you got this little top structure over here, a top structure through the middle of last week. And today it was holding in there, and then all of a sudden in the last hour it dropped 20 points. I think the bigger thing to focus on here is obviously over the last 3 weeks we've made no progress. But the second component of that is, the market's had a heady run. We're still above the 100-period moving average, even on just the S&P 500 60-minute chart. So this is hardly a place to get too concerned about overall bearishness. Now, I'm in the gallery view here, so I can go from intraday to daily to weekly. So I want to focus on the daily for a little bit. What I want to point out was this was a Fed meeting in here, and we dropped down, really quick down, and then rallied up and then retested. Actually, I've got that wrong. This is the Fed meeting. We dropped down, rallied up for a couple of weeks, dropped down, retested the Fed low, and took off. And then on this Fed meeting, we dropped down, rallied up, went back, tested the drop, and then went on to rally again. Now, again, as we work through this process of trying to get through earnings periods and get the economy reopened and get kids back to school safely and everything else, the market's really doing some consternation here. I will say that if you just look how many days in the last 3 weeks, so let's just pick from here, did we have higher volume than the day before on a selling day? And the answer is we had 1 here and 2 here, and then we didn't have any, and then we had 1 mid last week and none since. And I think the point is that usually when you start to sell off, usually you get a lot of what they call distribution days. And what a distribution day is it's a higher volume day on a down day. So on one of these red bars. So here Back in January, we had 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, and that was getting concerning. And then we had a few days where things were okay, and then we had one here, and then all of a sudden we really started to ramp up with every day increasing in volume, and then a lot more, and then more. And then as we worked towards the end here, towards the March low, we had lots of distribution days. Well, now over here on the other side, you can see we've had very tame volume. We haven't had a lot of these distribution days showing up, and even with the acceleration at the end of Tuesday, we didn't get a lot of, even though the price dropped right at the end of the day, especially on the NASDAQ chart. I mean, it did on the S&P too, but the big thing I want to point out is we're still in the middle of a sideways consolidation here, not really that bad. I will say that we're getting up where we're testing this gap area, and that's taking us some time to work through. And this June high, we stalled there as well. So now we're trying to get through. And maybe this is where the market finally rolls over. But we don't have, I don't even have a red price bar yet on the daily. And that would be one of them, right? And even if you started to get some of those, it doesn't mean you're going to waterfall. You can get it so it pulls down for a day or two and then takes off back to the upside. So, and we got some big tech names reporting this week, so we'll continue to watch it. But I think in general, would anybody be surprised if we had a market pullback? Probably none more than me. I was surprised at how far it went, but it continues to be well supported by lots of breadth from lots of sectors and industries. And so it's very hard to say that the market needs to sell off here. So my major point today is not only, just be aware of the trend, but so far the 60-minute trend on the 100 period moving average on the 60-minute chart is still holding as support and being tested for this week already on the Tuesday. Some areas of the market still on fire. The big names in the gold and silver have had an unbelievable week. Bitcoin's had a big move this week. And of course, the Fed meeting on Wednesday usually adds some volatility. So we've got lots to go through. Okay. One of the things, let's just point out a couple of things about this marijuana ETF list. And if I just go into 10 per page mode, that tells you I've got about 80 charts in here. So with that, that's kind of how many we're going to work through over the next few minutes. The big thing that I'm noticing on these is some of the chart changes that are starting to take place, and I want to share some of the ideas around the chart change with you, and then also go in and pick out some individual names. Now, the bottom half of this list, so literally, this is the price of the stock: 1 cent, 2 cents, 7 cents, 11 cents. I don't really want to get down into there. So when we get down to like 37 of the stocks or 38 of the stocks, we're all the way down to $1. Now these stocks were flying high on the other side, and now they've obviously started to pull back. So again, as it turns, we'll watch to see if it can start to move higher. But I think the big thing that we're looking for in all of this is trying to find the leaders, and they're not necessarily the highest priced stocks, but we're starting to see some that are really starting to move up nicely. And if we just did a percentage change on intraday, this was a 0 cent stock, but here's Canopy Growth Corp, and it was up 15% on the day. That's pretty big. And if we just go to a 1 week, 34%, that isn't the one. But here's MJ Fire and Flower. This is a retailer, and it's had a nice move up 20%, and this Acreage Holdings has moved up 17%. Curaleaf has a really nice chart moving up 15%. Aphria started to move last week and continued to move this week, so up 15%. These names are starting to move, and I think it's more around 100 days to the U.S. election and pricing in the potential that perhaps marijuana gets approved federally in the U.S. And if that was the case, then we'd probably see a lot more price action from these stocks. Okay, so with that, I want to jump in, and again, I'm going to go back to the sort order that I sorted them out in. It's not all by price for the most part. I sorted by price, and then I sorted by, I had put some MJ names in here of the stronger names, just the stronger looking charts. Maybe I should explain that for a little bit. Okay, so one of the things that you do when you number the charts in order rather than them being alphabetically, it it will resort the charts. That's nice, and that's a feature on StockCharts. So when you're in summary mode, you would scroll down to the bottom and you would hit number in sorted order. So whatever order you've got them sorted in, it would stay. Now in this case, we got a whole bunch of dogs in the park all the time. And so the problem for me is I don't really want to invest in the dogs. I want something a little stronger than that. So what I can do is I can also just click on sorted order here. And what I want to do with that, if I take the numbers off, then I could look at anything that I've just put an MJ in front. And the reason I did that was just so that I could go grab all of the kind of stocks that I looked through, and they're more common names, and either their chart shape is nice or their price is okay. I did notice I had one in the 42-cent category, so that wasn't really it, but it was more of a popular name in the old days or the last run up. Now let's go look at these charts specifically, and let's just talk for a second here about the indicators. So again, I've got the RSI on the top here, and what the RSI is telling us, when they're above 50, at least that's bullish. I could turn on my pinpoint for you so it's a little easier to see a big arrow. And then how they're performing relative to the S&P 500 on my charts, that's always the purple area chart. And then for full stochastics, is it in the top of the range? And again, these are weekly charts. They're holding up quite nicely. And on some of these charts, I just literally avoided the March dip. And the reason was because there was a trend in place before. We had the sudden sell-off, and within 2 weeks, this thing was back touching that bar. It took a few weeks to close above it. But the idea being we've got an uptrend going, and we just want to monitor that. Now, if it's going to start to make a lower high here and roll over, that would be important. We're starting to see a little bit of that on this PPO. So maybe this isn't the right chart to buy. I'm not sure that the fertilizer business is the one I wanted, but this is Scott's Lawn Care and lawn seed and lawn fertilizer and all that. And so for the marijuana names, it was kind of one of the names in the space. Let's just go and get this on a larger scale. We'll make the charts a little bit bigger. And now we can just fire through them. So again, I'm sorting it by 10 per page mode. And now I can just scroll through. I've made all of the settings the same on all of the charts, I think. So hopefully, as we go through, we can see the same theme. So one of the big themes going on here was everything was in a downtrend, and all of a sudden it started to break out of that downtrend and move higher. And this GWPH pharmaceutical company started to take off to the upside. Again, trying to get through this February high. It's just kind of stalled there for now. So these first two charts aren't really the mainstream of the marijuana sector, but I do want to point them out. Now this innovative industrial properties, this one's been sitting here, I want to call it at a 52-week high for a long time. It's just been holding here up against that level for about 6-8 weeks now, and any time it could break through here. I think this one's probably got some room to the upside. I do like the fact that the downtrend and momentum is broken and it's actually moved in positive territory. It's above zero, starting to outperform the S&P 500 by sloping up. If I put a line across the top here, that would also be very close to new 52-week highs. And 52-week highs in relative strength is just as important. It usually tells you that large institutions are going to be scanning for price action there. Now this HMJI.TO is an inverse ETF, so it goes up when the marijuana names are dropping. And the only reason I kept it on display here was because the marijuana names had a big, they were selling off all the way into the March low, and they've been rallying ever since. And so this chart does the opposite, so it's falling ever since. And now it's very close to breaking through, going back into September here. A move below $30 here would put it as a major topping structure, or on the case of the positive side, the stocks would all start to be turning up now. So Canopy Growth had a big day on Tuesday, and this week is already up 17.6%. Lots of things I like about it. First of all, the one thing I like a lot is this big downtrend in momentum that started pretty much right here when it was Weed Wednesday in October of 2018. All of the marijuana names kind of ran up to that point. That was legalization day in Canada. And then they all started to slide from there. And then there was some hope that the U.S. was going to start to legalize it, and then that kind of went away or fell away, and now all of a sudden starting to come back on the table. So for the first time in a very long time, at least a year, I guess there was one brief close here in May above the 40-week moving average, but we finally have a second close above the 40-week moving average and looking like it wants to push higher. Now this is the Canadian listing. The U.S. listing is CGC for Canopy Growth Corp, and the chart looks good. It's one of the bigger names in the space, but even just, it jumped up call it $4 today. And if it could get through this $30 level up here, all of a sudden you're very close to 52-week high. So I like the fact that the momentum's been improving. I like that the PPO is almost crossing zero. And again, it's broken that big major downtrend line. That's why it first got on my radar. It hasn't done anything really since then until this week. So it keeps kind of giving us false starts. And then hopefully this is the actual final breakout. So here's Trulieve, and this one really started to push up. You can see how it broke the downtrend line and then migrated sideways for 6 or 8 weeks, and now it's actually started to rock on, and even the open of this week was kind of in the range and really pushed up 10%. Up 10% already this week. So a nice big push, and you can see the momentum is now above zero, and they're starting to head higher. So a pretty good name in the space. And one of the leaders right now, actually, one of the better looking charts. Here's the American listing for Canopy Growth Corporation, and you can see lots of good things going on. In 2 days, the volume has already taken out the previous 5 weeks of volume. So it's already made a higher high than all of these price or volume bars going back 6 weeks. So that's significant that investors are jumping into the space, and one of the reasons I wanted to present this whole area this week. This Green Thumb Industries has been working its way higher, 1750, and as you can see, that's a new 52-week high breaking out there. So this looks obviously positive, some good things going on. And I'm not going to get into the fundamentals of all the company data. I'm really looking what's the price action on the charts and which one are the investors picking to lead us out of the basement here. And some of the names are coming to the fore. Aurora Cannabis is still living down around its, I'll call it $10 lows here. It's up a little bit more than that. It's sitting at $15, but in general, it's been going sideways since March, while some of those other names like this one have been going up rather than sideways. So Aurora had a big drop down, rally up, and then kind of giving it back. This almost looks like accumulation to me, and we'll see the same sort of spark from the other side from like we saw in Canopy Growth Corp. But I think I would be just as interested in going straight to the leaders here. We're still early in this, and if they are making a position for the U.S. election, again, that we're 100 days out from that, and then we're another 60 days out from the inauguration date. And so with all of that, there's another, just to pick a number, we've got a ramp here of roughly 150, 180 days. Let's just call it 6 months. And so we're in the first kind of week or two that they're breaking out. This Curaleaf Holdings, I really like this one. This one did move to a new 52-week high this week, and it's already up 15%. But again, just starting the breakout to new 52-week highs. PPO has moved above zero here, so it's been up there for 4 or 5 weeks, and you can see this breakout from a 4 or 5 week consolidation. This is the same sort of price bar we're seeing in Canopy Growth right now. And maybe I'll just go up and show that to you one more time. So again, kind of 6 weeks settling sideways after a big push in May, and now starting to meander higher. Let me just find one of the two. Here's the Canadian listing. So the same idea here, where big push up in May and then pull back and then grinding sideways, and now just starting to break out of that range. So what we're seeing in Canopy Growth this week is what we saw in Curaleaf 4 weeks ago, which I think is a very big positive. And looking at PotX, this is an ETF. If you just wanted to buy cannabis ETF, don't get involved in the different names. It moved above its 10-week for the first time in 4 or 5 weeks so far this week. And what we'd like to see, obviously, is it starts to break higher. That would be a collection of this large group. And there's a big downsloping trend line here that's about ready to break. So that would be helpful. Kronos, big wide base here going back 8 months. It looks a little wider. Let's call it this $5 extreme that we hit in March. Lots of things hit an extreme in March, but really the trading range has been $7.50 to $10. A push through $10, and I think that would be new 6-month highs and kind of get you going. So that would be nice. Tilray, this was a really popular name, up at $200 a share and went all the way down to $6. I'm sure people in it never believed it had that kind of runway down going on. But anyway, we're sitting down here, call it $10. It's $8 now. And so with that, a break above there would definitely be a change in trend. If I just click on this one and annotate it, what I want to show you is that the break on this momentum trend is just breaking now, and that's one of the things I like to see, is all of a sudden a change in momentum. So instead of continuing to make lower highs, starts to break out. I really like it in the context of the rest of the group doing that. And so if this was going to start to pop to the upside, I think there's a very good opportunity for this to get going again. And there were some pretty hepped up people over here at $200, and the president was talking about it being a $100 billion company. It's very small now, market cap of $1 billion. So they have some work to do. But anyway, if this can start to turn up here, even getting up to 10, or where it was in January at 22.50 would be a triple, very close. So anyway, one of the reasons I like it is the momentum change is starting to take place on the name. Let's just get back into our 10 per page mode. Here's Aphria, and this was the big push this week. And again, go back, that takes you to September of last year. So we can call that 10-month highs, and a breakup above here obviously looks like it's set to go. It's already up 16% on the week, but I think they're just getting started. Cresco Labs, this one's also breaking out to new 4-month highs or whatever. The downtrend seems to have ended. PPO about to go positive, and it's pushing above this multi-month consolidation. So I like it. Medical marijuana, this is the Canadian ETFs, kind of one of the longer ones that's been around. Sitting here in this tight sideways range for 8 or 10 weeks here, and first week moving above the 40-week moving average. So again, another clue that perhaps things are improving. Corbus Pharmaceuticals, I don't really like the chart here. It's rolled over after some pretty big heady weeks. I mean, these weeks were $7 to $9 and then all the way back to $6.50. So, those are giant pullbacks to try and deal with. And the fact that we're at the bottom end of the range, it's got to at least start to give me something here. But right now, momentum has rolled over and given you a sell signal. So I think I'd let that chart just straighten out before starting to look at it. I think there's better setups. Here's Aphria, the U.S. listing rather than the Canadian listing up above, and it's starting to break out to the upside. Really like that chart. Charlotte's Web Holdings here, this is a retailer, and you can see it sitting down here on this $5 level, trying to hold it for the last 4 or 5 months. It really needs to break out of this 5-week consolidation to be considered, but I will say that the selling momentum is a lot less, and so we've got a higher low in momentum, even though we've got the same low in price. So that's usually a positive. Okay, FSD Pharma, this big downtrend, not really a big fan of it. It's not a name I know well, but the other thing about it is it's just sitting in this $5 range below its 40-week moving average. Perhaps there's an opportunity to move. Every now and then this thing does a rifle shot from $4 to 14 and back, so maybe it is time to pay attention. Somebody bought into the story on that particular move. And so there must be somebody following it. And if it's going to start to move, this might be the opportunity as it breaks out of this base. TerrAscend, I like this chart shape again, climbing out of this base, going back to December of last year, and just a nice push, up 10% already this week. PPO moving above zero for the first time since last August or September. Looks great. Just a nice chart. Neptune Technologies, this one has been just consolidating sideways wildly from $3 to $5, so that's a pretty big consolidation range. 40, $2 on $3, so a 60% consolidation range. I think what I want to see here is let it continue to work sideways, and if it does start to follow the rest of the pack higher, the volume is dried up here, so that could be telling us that somebody wants to start buying into this and they're not willing to sell anymore. So we'll find out. The ranges were relatively small the last couple of weeks, so perhaps this is the week it kicks in gear. We're getting towards the bottom of the names that I would like to own in the space. Alcanna, really can't get through the previous October highs yet. If it does, all of a sudden it's very close to 52-week highs, specialty retail. Aero Grow International, this one's been moving since the beginning of the year, pulled back in March with the COVID, and then literally got right back on its horse and went up. So from $1 to $4, that's been a nice triple for somebody who bought it down in the lows here. And again, we got some other charts I just showed you that we're sitting on the lows at $5, and perhaps they can make the move out of the base. It's been consolidating sideways for 5 weeks, but looks nice. It's at new 2-year highs. That's pretty pleasant. Planet 13's Holdings has broken this big downtrend it had going on. It hit new 52-week highs last week, and consolidating this week around the middle of the range. Maybe it needs a little bit more time, but I think I'd use a short-term chart. Obviously, somebody wants to buy it because look at the volume coming in here. So this was $1.75, and it went all the way to $4 in a couple of months. Those are big moves, and again, tried to break out to new 52-week highs, didn't close up there, but it pushed up there, and perhaps that tells you where we're going next. Here's that Acreage Holdings. Big downtrend on the on the 40-week moving average, and consolidating sideways around this 250 layer. I do like the fact that this momentum trend down at the bottom here is starting to break, so that looks pretty good to me. And Cardiol Therapeutics, this one's still downtrending, nothing really great. Okay, so Valens has been uptrending for a couple of years, and it's just starting to work on the lower side of the range. Now, it was up at $4. It's down here at $2. What we're looking for here is we want to see this stock continue to hold this $2 and then start to break some of these downward trend lines. I do like the fact that the PPO momentum trend very close to breaking here, and that's one of the things, as I've shown you on many of the charts above. It was one of the first things it did, then it might consolidate for a while and then finally break out. What we want to see this do is we want the PPO to get back above the zero into positive momentum. Hasn't been there since October of last year, so a good push up from there would be good. OrganicGram was one of the big names for low price, and obviously it would be good to see that one start to rock again. But with that, I think we're pretty much done here. Thanks for taking the time to join me. Looking forward to lots of good price action out of this marijuana name. And Market Buzz airs Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. You can also see the recording on StockCharts TV YouTube page. You can also find my US and Canadian market reviews on the StockCharts YouTube page under the Canadian Technician, as well as heading over to gregschnell.com and check out what you can see there. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're going to bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.